In this short video, I'm going to talk about how risk pooling works. I'm going to do that in a very intuitive way. I'm not going to use any math. I'm not going to use this supply chain theory to go into the details. It's more like an intuition and a brief explanation of how risk pooling can influence inventory amounts and how much safety stock companies carry. Something that is very important to understand is that demand is uncertain. Most of demand in companies face, especially in fashion supply chain management, is uncertain. We don't know how much we're going to sell. We don't know how much we're going to sell every day, in a given week, in a given month, during a season. So demand is uncertain. So let's get started with 4 stores. Imagine we have 4 stores, we have retail chain, have 4 stores, and all these stores face uncertain demand. And what this means is that demand changes differ. I'm going to use some hypothetical numbers here to illustrate this idea. All these numbers are some amount of sales above and below the average. Okay, let's assume the average is our reference point. And in the first store is selling 20 units more than average, and the second store sells less 15 units than the average. The third store sells 10 units more than the average, and the last store sells 5 units less than average. So you see that there is a variability, and that's how stores are. Some sell more, some sell less. Then sometimes that changes. The store that's selling 20 units, maybe next week is going to sell less units than the average, and the other store that was selling less, they're going to sell more. That's the variability stores face. Okay? And then what the stores do, what companies do to protect these sales, to not lose sales when demand spikes or there are changes in demand? Well, they have the safety stock. The safety stock exists to protect sales, to not lose sales when there are changes in the demand. For example, here we have 4 safety stocks, 1 for each store. And here they exist to help the first store to be able to sell the 20 units they're selling above demand, above average demand. If they don't have that amount of safety stock, maybe they would have sales lost. They would lose sales by not having the safety stock. Okay, so you see that each one of these stores are carrying safety stock, and let's place a number here. Let's imagine that they're carrying 25 units each one of these stores. Why? Well, we have the first store selling 20 units. The third store is selling 10 units. Maybe they could sell more, we don't know, but at least they would sell 20. We don't know beforehand that the other 3 stores are gonna sell less than the average, but they have to carry this safety stock anyway to protect sales and avoid losses. Okay, so you see that this, if we sum. Now let's start understanding the impact of pooling in the variability of demand. Imagine we have a central inventory or warehouse where we can pool the inventory. What happens is that the high demand in one store is partially offset by the low demand in another. You see here that we have in total 100 units in safety stock, 25 for each store. But when we look to the variability in the demand, we only need 30 units because some stores are selling below the average demand. When we pull demand in one central warehouse or inventory, we need less total safety stock because high demand is very unlikely to happen at the same time in all stores. Some stores are going to have high demand, some stores are going to have less demand, and then pulling the system in a central inventory will allows the company to serve these stores when they experience the higher demand. And because they don't experience at the same time, the company doesn't have to carry a big amount, a high amount of safety stock. That amount can be reduced significantly just based on these differences that occur throughout the time. Of course, we can use math and supply chain theory to come up with the exact number, but I'm using here a hypothetical illustrative number of 50 units in a central inventory, just to show you that is much less than what all the stores would carry individually. So if we treat the system as individual stores, then we need more safety stock to protect each store individually. When we pull the system together, we need less total safety stock because we're considering all the differences that are occurring at the same time. So the takeaway is that risk pooling does not reduce demand, doesn't change demand. Demand is still the same. The variability in demand is still the same. What this is doing is risk pooling is using the difference in each store's demand to balance the inventory needs. It reduces the inventory needed to protect against demand variability. However, there is no free lunch. Centralizing the inventory can reduce safety stock, as I showed you, but it may increase transportation cost, like I mentioned. Like, it's going to demand more transportation from the central inventory to each store when the stores need it. It is going to increase delivery time because you have to move from the central inventory to the stores. It's going to increase the response time. If there is a very fast spike in demand, you have to be very quick in responding to that spike, which means fast logistic, fast assignment, shipment, and then putting into trucks, and then trucks going to the stores and replenishing the stores. So you see that there is an increasing coordination complexity, right? There is more needed for coordination here. Companies they need to know, again, they have to have information, very quick, fast and accurate information, be fast in processing those needs in a central inventory, put everything together, put in a truck and send a truck for each store. Okay, so risk pooling is good, reduces the total safety stock, the total inventory, but it creates more complexity, and the need to coordinate all this complexity needs also transportation and logistics, a higher emphasis on that, and probably transportation cost. But that's what risk pooling can do to companies that are selling fashion and clothing products.